You have other lawyers trying to get into the case, going around your back to family members, trying to get to Michael, trying to maneuver you out because they want to be in the case. You've got be careful of witnesses because they're all trying to profit somehow. Not all of them. Some of them are very honorable, but some of them are not. And some of them want to find a way to make a splash with the media, publish a book, get television interviews, whatever. And this was the most media-saturated trial in the history of America. You had over 2,200 accredited media, which is more media than covered the O.J. Simpson and the Scott Peterson cases combined. So you're kind of trying to navigate through this sea of distractions and focus on what it takes to win. But fortunately, we have a jury system, and while it's not perfect, because people are never perfect, and while mistakes are made, because people make mistakes, I think that jurors generally try to do their best to follow their oath, look at the evidence carefully, follow the judge's jury instructions, and do what's fair and correct. I think American juries try to do that. They don't always succeed at it, but they try. Mm-hmm. And the media is not as powerful in the end as they think they are.
Amen.
They said O.J. Simpson would be convicted, he was acquitted. They said Robert Blake would be convicted, he was acquitted. Mm-hmm. They said Michael Jackson would be convicted, he was acquitted. They recently said Casey Anthony in Florida would be convicted, she was acquitted. So I truly believe that when someone is picked to be on a jury, they change. They take an oath to follow the law. They know what they're being asked to do, that a life is in their hands, that they can destroy or not, or destroy the people around that life or not. And I think they carefully watch for 6 to 8 hours every day who those witnesses are and what they say. And what happens in their eyes, what happens in their demeanor, what do they feel about them. This is not living on sound bites like most people do. They turn on the tube, they get a few reports, and they think, oh, I know the case. This is not life by soundbite on a jury. This is a very serious, exhausting, serious thing. And I had never tried a case in Santa Barbara County, and I certainly had never tried a case in northern Santa Barbara County. And before I got to the start of the trial, I did spend some time in various bars and restaurants alone, in my jeans and leather jacket, just hanging around, hoping somebody would want to talk, and someone always did, to find out how the community felt about Michael Jackson. Because in the media, you got the impression this was a conservative, stiff, cruel, harsh community that was ready to lynch him in 5 seconds. That's the way the media portrayed it. And I was attacked by jealous lawyers, by jealous people around the Jacksons when I didn't make a motion for change of venue. Because I got the feeling, hanging out in that community, that we'd get a fair trial. I got the feeling, yes, people were very conservative in many ways. Yes, people were very law and order minded, for sure. But yes, people also didn't want government going too far into their backyards. I got the feeling there was a very libertarian spirit among many people in this community, and a strong independent spirit. That's what I determined myself by simply hanging out in some bars and restaurants. I never saw an African American person. The people who talked to me were mostly white and Latino. And I know that the Jackson family and many people and advisors around the Jacksons were very concerned that there would be no African Americans on the jury, and I was not. Because Michael Jackson brought races together, he didn't divide them. And when we were picking the jury, I looked over at the prosecutors, 3 white males and their white male jury consultant. I looked at them, and I'm an intuitive person, and I said to myself, they have convinced themselves that they cannot lose this case. They and the media have conditioned each other to try and get what they want. They're simplistic when it comes to race. They have no experience with African American people at all. And I can tell what they think I'm going to do, because they knew I've been very active in the black community in Los Angeles and the South. They knew I went to an African-American church, and I had a reputation. And I think their simplistic notion was, he's going to desperately do anything he can to get a black person on the jury to try and hang it, because otherwise he doesn't have a chance. And that just wasn't true. That just wasn't true. So, what were we trying to show about Michael Jackson? We were trying to show that he was not only one of the most brilliant geniuses ever to grace the planet, creatively, dance, music, art, painting, choreography. There's almost no creative endeavor that he wasn't brilliant at. We also wanted to show that he was one of the most brilliant, the most generous humanitarians ever to grace the planet. That he had a rule that before he ever did a concert around the world, he would visit a children's hospital to see sick children. That he had secretly given so much money to help disabled children around the world, children who are victims of tragedies. That he had built Neverland for one primary purpose, to see children happy, to see disabled people happy. Yes. That he had a waiting list for years of people who wanted to visit Neverland, inner city children, children born in poverty and violence, children with disabilities, children with rare diseases, people who were disabled. He got joy from this. He didn't have to do it. That's right. He could have just bought a mansion on the French Riviera and just partied all the time if he wanted. That wasn't what he wanted. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we had to show this jury who he was, and we had to show the jury what charlatans the prosecution's witnesses were. And I think we really effectively did that. Yeah. However, they did some permanent damage, in my opinion. I don't know. I can only speculate. But I feel that Michael didn't totally recover from that horrific ordeal. 5 months in that courtroom, 5 days a week, hearing people attack him this way, knowing he may never be free again, scared to death what it would do to his children. It was a horrible, horrible experience for poor Michael, and it should never have happened. Mm-hmm. And remember, there was a build-up before it, because originally there was a criminal complaint filed the previous year, then there was a grand jury convened, a grand jury indictment. All of this time, he's living on pins and needles, trying to figure out who to look to trust, who to look to be protected. And it was just an abominable experience for him. Sometimes I wish I'd known him during happier periods, but I think I was meant to know him during this very low period. I can't tell you how honored I am to have been able to be his defense attorney. My partner Susan and you and I, we both worked morning, noon, and night on this defense. We didn't know who to trust sometimes ourselves. We kept our theories and our strategies to ourselves. One thing I learned very quickly was that media wanted to try.
And that was Thomas Hurricane Mesereau, the chief defense counsel for Michael Jackson, that, made sure that the corrupt, thoroughly rotten to the core judicial system didn't kangaroo hop the innocent forever Michael Joe Jackson into prison for something he not only didn't do, he wasn't capable of even thinking. And I don't know if you've seen the split rail fence around Neverland. Part of Neverland has a split rail fence, and Janet Arvizo, the accusing mother who coached the kids on how they were going to embezzle or they were going to twist Michael till Michael bought him $1 million home near Neverland so they could visit often. She couldn't escape over the split rail 3-level fence that you and I could easily step over, but she couldn't escape. Even when she was off in Solvang or someplace in San Ynez Valley at a beautician, she couldn't escape because the driver was also holding her prisoner. I mean, the evidence was so crappy. It shows you that Thomas Snedden, the snake of the Santa Barbara District Attorney's Office, not only was he arrogant, he's a criminal, an unindicted criminal, in my First Amendment opinion, having watched the whole 5 months of the crappy evidence. That brings me to, why did 2 men assassinate a prosecutor in Oklahoma a few days ago? 2 men supposedly dressed in black caught this guy who used to be a prosecutor in a major city in Texas, and now he was a prosecutor in a small county in Texas, and he got whacked. Now, apparently they didn't steal his money, so it wasn't like a robbery. So why would anybody want to kill a prosecutor? They don't do anything evil or wrong, do they? Or do they? Thinking of the Dirty Four, Snedden, Auchincloss, Zonin, and Nicola, I don't think it was a mob hit because he maybe put some minor mob officials in prison. No, I don't think so. If the mob had done it, they wouldn't have even seen the guys. There wouldn't even be any to say, oh, I saw 2 guys. They're smarter than that. The mob is more careful when they whack somebody. Remember Jimmy Hoffa got into a limo or a car with friends, but nobody actually saw who was driving the limo for Jimmy Hoffa, and Jimmy Hoffa was never seen again. That's how the mob does it. There are no witnesses. I think it's possible this prosecutor kangarooed some innocent people, might have even been non-custodial parents, might have kangarooed them into jail, held them in jail for failure to pay child support or some related issue, and 2 of the non-custodial dads might have got out of jail. I'm just theorizing, haven't actually done an investigation. But why would they kill him? Is it possible they never got to see their children again? And then maybe their children ended up in foster care and raped by pedophiles? Oh, yes. You've heard about the pedophiles who have been arrested, who worked for Child Protective Services. One in Florida, one the head of, I think it was Minnesota Child Protective Service, was arrested trying to escape, and he was in Nevada. There are dozens, if not hundreds of them a year. Why do the pedophiles flock to Child Protective Services? Because it gives them unlimited power. And the court cases are closed to the public. That should all change. They should be open to the public. What happens in these star chamber proceedings? Star chamber, if you never studied law, refers to, oh, the judges hate to hear me say star chamber proceedings. Because if you studied law, and I did study law at a bona fide law school in Orange County decades ago, star chambers refers to when they used to take people and they would stretch them backwards over a wheel, and they would stretch them until their bones cracked and broke, till their muscles ripped in their legs and arms. And they would torture them until they said whatever the king or the count or the duke wanted them to say. Confess to anything. Because the torture was so horrific. To help them concentrate, they would paint little stars on the ceiling of the dungeon. So as they stretch back, they can focus on the little stars, and that's supposed to make the torture more bearable. And that's why this thing called star chambers, judges don't like to hear it. But that's exactly what most family courts are. Star chamber, the public's kept out, not allowed to see the torture, not allowed to see the CPS workers come in, falsify, lie on the record, and never swear to it under oath. But then the judge takes it as the absolute gospel. What a bunch of crap. People, it's time to take back America. It's time to make America the America that foreigners think it still is, where you have real guaranteed rights, where you understand the common law, and the common law is what's applied in the courtroom, not this bullshit code, penal code, traffic court code, family court code, all which allows them to do exactly the opposite of what the Founding Fathers shed their blood for.